Hello and welcome to the Happy Little Futures podcast. As always, let's take a nice deep breath in and release. Fantastic. So, a few months ago now, I did a podcast on ADHD or parenting overwhelm, and that was all about sort of the parallels and how we can then bring mindfulness into the day and stuff like that. And I mentioned that I'd been put down for an ADHD assessment. I had that assessment last week, and according to the person assessing me, I scored top marks, and got 9 out of 9 in everything, and so have been diagnosed with inattentive and hyperactive ADHD. And I just thought I'd have a chat, because there'll be people listening who either have gone through that process or are waiting to go through that process, or have possibly been watching their kids and sort of like looking at their kids, trying to support them, wondering about ADHD and stuff like that for them, or teachers have suggested it, and then starting to recognise things in themselves. And so they might be considering what that means for them. So, first of all, I had the assessment. It was relatively straightforward. It lasted about an hour and a half, 2 hours. And there was an initial chat with lots of questions. And then there was the sort of scoring thing. And again, it was sort of yes, no answers, a few examples here and there, just to help sort of support. And that was that. So the actual assessment itself isn't that scary, to be honest, as long as you're okay talking to people and possibly having a few moments, which you might be having anyway if you're going through the thought processes of possibly having ADHD and all of that. It's not too bad. It's not too bad an experience. It just takes time, and for someone who can now say that they have inattentive ADHD, a little bit of concentration, if you can, to try and process some of the questions properly and all of that sort of stuff, which isn't overly easy, but obviously the person doing it is assessing for ADHD, as she reminded me a few times, so she's used to that sort of stuff. So the process itself, the assessment itself, is relatively painless. As for afterwards, again, that's been relatively painless. But for those of you who haven't had an ADHD diagnosis or don't really know what to expect or what to get from it, I was asked if I wanted medication. I decided I didn't, and I'm going to come on to that later. But after that, it means I can access ADHD coaching and stuff like that, speak to my therapist and sort of bring it into that as a sort of recommendation, sort of general stuff, which is fine. And for me personally, it doesn't change anything at all, except for the fact that I can talk to you guys about it. And again, I'm going to move on with that. And it might be that this episode stretches over a couple of episodes. It might be that I do this now and then talk about more stuff later. But the responses I've had from other people have been quite interesting, and sort of across the board have been both the same and different. I'd say I've had 3 main responses from people. So one is congratulations, which is great that they feel the need to congratulate me. Personally, I've been a bit like, oh, okay, it's unusual. But also, I think when you get that diagnosis, it's nice to have that. Like, for many people, it's been something that they've suspected and worked towards for a while and tried to fight for. And especially when you're fighting for your children and trying to support them and figure out what additional support they might need at school and places like that, getting any diagnosis or any support or anything that means that it could be easier to get support is beneficial. So that's been the one response. And I'm like, thank you very much. The other one has been, and how do you feel about that? Which again has sort of thrown me, because even though I've been asked this many times, it's sort of a bit of a, I don't know. Like, now that you're asking me, I don't know what I'm meant to say to this, which actually I suppose is that second guessing that you get with a lot of things, and maybe ADHD and fear of rejection and stuff like that, RSD and stuff like that. So with that, for me personally, I don't feel it's changed anything. I've already said that. It hasn't changed anything. However, I find it validating, and I feel that it's beneficial for me to know, because it will help me to label and move forwards, knowing where different thought processes are coming from, where, like, when I get frustrated with myself because I'm not just starting something or doing something, it helps me to sort of go, like, it's okay, you're not failing, your brain just works differently, let's work with it and find a way to work towards something. So that I think will be beneficial. And then in some ways, a lot of this sort of stuff I was implementing anyway, because it just made my life easier. So that's the main differences for me. And the fact that I can, again, like I said, I can tell you that I have ADHD, which, again, I'll come on to in a second anyway. So, and then the final reaction has been, from a few people, has been sort of like, what? You're the last person that I thought would have ADHD. I can't believe you've got a diagnosis. That, for me, in some ways, has very much sort of made me feel, oh no, am I wrong to have done this? Do they feel that I'm attention seeking? Stuff like that. And then I've had to sort of correct myself and go, no, it's just that I've worn a mask for so many years now, and it's a very natural thing for me to do, to mask in front of new people or things like that. Or I think in some instances, because the mask has been slowly coming off over time, I think people just assumed that it was sort of more of a bubbly me rather than a hyperactive, can't quite stop moving me. and I'm not bouncing all over the place all the time. It's very much fidgeting and things like that I do. But yeah, there's a lot going on mentally, even if there's not hyperactivity or something like that. So I'm going to quickly just take a moment just to thank our sponsor, who is Rowan Fox Clothing. Rowan Fox Clothing is a sustainable clothing brand with wonderful nature-inspired prints, and you can find them at rowanfox.com and Rowan Fox on Instagram and Facebook. So take a look there, because all their stuff is absolutely gorgeous. They also do mugs and things, and our kids every morning at the moment are waking up and having a drink in their mug, and I just love it every single morning, seeing those beautiful pictures. So yeah, definitely take a look at them. So the main thing that I feel that this will help, and I'm hoping it will help, is for people that are struggling with ADHD, with that thought of like possibly having ADHD, with where to go, with having pain and going to the doctors and being told, oh, just try some mindfulness, just do this. Why don't you just try this? Why don't you just do that? I'm hoping that I will be able to support you, because I have been practicing meditation and mindfulness for well over a decade now. Sort of 15 years or something crazy like that. At least it feels crazy to me. So I've been practicing meditation and mindfulness for a very long time now. I have used it to support anxiety, depression, all that sort of stuff. And behind the scenes, I have used it, and I've realised this over the past sort of 18 months or so, since I've been watching my eldest and sort of going, oh, actually, I think I might have ADHD. I've started to realise that I use it all the time to manage my ADHD. And yes, that is correct. I am saying that as someone with ADHD, I meditate and use mindfulness to help manage my ADHD. And I want this to sort of, this message to get out there a little bit, because I have had so many people that I've spoken to, old, young, and in between, who they've sort of gone, oh, what do you do? And I've gone, oh, I'm a meditation coach. And they go, oh yeah, I can't do that because I've got ADHD. Oh, my mind's too busy to switch off. Oh, I couldn't do it. I can't sit still. And I get this response all the time from many people. And I think part of the reason for that is this sort of, when you say meditation, there's this natural jump to sort of seeing someone sitting cross-legged in silence. I've spoken about this before, and not thinking anything. And that is so not the case. Because meditation and mindfulness can be used anywhere, for anything. And they can be used to support you. They can be used to support your mental health and support you through emotional struggles and dysregulation and depression and all the rest. And they can be used, not only all of that, but to help support you in times when you're doing negative self-talk, to help reaffirm that actually you are doing your best, you are good, you are positive, like reinforce that positive message to yourself. And I think this is a really, really important thing that needs spreading as a message, is that you can have ADHD and you can practice self-care through meditation and mindfulness. And I know that because I do that, and I have ADHD. And I know that because I was doing that before I was diagnosed with it. And I was doing it to support myself with the symptoms, as it turns out, of masked ADHD. They very much think that, like, the anxiety and depression that I've suffered from, it's very common for people who are older, who have masked ADHD for years and years, to then struggle with mental health conditions such as anxiety and depression and things like that. And so I feel it's really important for people to understand that even though their mind is racing, even though they can't sit still and all the rest, they are able to meditate and to be mindful. And all that means is that we need to work together to find a way that works for you. And it doesn't need to take long. It's very hard to focus on things that you're not interested in. If you have ADHD, it might be very hard. I personally struggle with that. I've always struggled with that. I assumed that everyone struggled with that. I don't know if people who have not got an ADHD diagnosis, or think that they might, I don't know if it's normal for them to have the issue where they can't focus on things that they're not interested in. So what we need to do is work together and work with you and with your brain to help you find ways in which to meditate, in which to become more mindful, that can then benefit you in the everyday, on the go, doing what you want to do. And this is really, really important, because it's very normal, it's very common to be constantly talking yourself down, telling yourself that you can't do things and all the rest. And it's not only common with ADHD, it's common with things like chronic pain, which is something that I struggle with. And I've used the meditation and mindfulness to sort of help myself to overcome that. So it's common with all of that. It's common with just sort of when you've generally been put down, there'll be some forms of trauma and stuff like that I'm sure it's common with, where that negative self-talk and that I can't because I'm X, I can't because I've got why, all of that sort of stuff will stop you from trying to do the things that you want to do and the things that will ultimately benefit your health, your mental health, your well-being. So I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to do a bit of a separate separate podcast on how I can support you, how things have sort of played out for me over the years and stuff like that, and starting to just sort of reinterpret things a little bit for you. I've spoken in the past about my story and what I've been through, where I've come from, and how I've used mindfulness and meditation, why it's been important for me. And now that I understand myself a little bit more, I'm going to do a little bit more of the deeper, this is what is also happening at the same time inside and why it's important, in a separate podcast. So thank you very much for joining me for this session, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. And with that, we're going to take a nice deep breath in and out. Excellent. And I will speak to you soon. Bye.